Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalam ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. This is Edward Ahmed Mitchell, welcoming you to today's episode of CAIR on Air. Thank you so much for joining us. Ramadan Mubarak. Before I talk about today's program, I want to start by thanking our listeners on American Muslim 360. We always appreciate you, and those of you watching on Facebook, thank you for joining as well. If you have any questions during the program, you can put them in the comments and we'll try to address them during the program, inshallah. I also want to say thank you to everyone who's donated to CAIR so far in Ramadan. As you all know, we've got a goal that we're trying to hit, the 10-day goal, the 20-day goal, the 30-day goal. Alhamdulillah, right now we've made progress, but we're still behind our main goal. So we encourage everyone to please support our work, defend Muslims this Ramadan. Your donations to CAIR will help us, inshallah, serve, protect, and advocate for our community, whether that's in the court of law or the court of public opinion. But in order to defend the community, we need support from the community, inshallah. So please take some time to donate today and encourage your friends and family to do so as well. Help us hit our goal. We've got 5 days left to hit our next goal, inshallah. So if you can help us hit that, we will, inshallah, be back on track and have a very successful Ramadan for the community, inshallah. With that, let's dive into the topic of today's program. So we're going to have two different segments today. Usually we have one main segment. We're going to do two, inshallah. The first, we're going to discuss some breaking news that just came out yesterday from the international arena that impacts us here in the United States. And that's going to be the discussion of Human Rights Watch and its new report labeling the Israeli government's military occupation of the Palestinian people officially apartheid. And we're going to discuss that and what it means for American policy and what we can do about this first. And then in our second segment, we're going to be discussing a horrific vandalism hate crime that occurred in the state of Minnesota and what the Minnesota Muslim community, including CAIR Minnesota, is doing about that issue, inshallah. So to the first segment, let's bring on CAIR National's Government Affairs Director, Robert S. McCaw. Assalamu alaikum, Robert. How are you?
Walaikum salam. Ramadan Mubarak to you and our viewers.
Ramadan Mubarak. Thank you so much. Jazakallah khairan. So Robert, we got some news the other day from Human Rights Watch. Just start by telling us, first of all, for those who don't know, HRW, they're a very prominent human rights organization, maybe second only to Amnesty International on the international scene. And they hold various governments to account, whether it's Israel, America, Saudi Arabia, China, Brazil, you name the country. Human Rights Watch will try to speak out about human rights abuses happening in that country. And so they released a report yesterday about the Israeli government's military occupation of Palestine. What was the key finding of that report, Robert?
The key finding was that it found the Israeli government has an intent, a policy to maintain the domination of Jewish Israelis over Palestinians throughout the territories it controls. Now that's inside Israel and also with the Arab minority, and outside of Israel in the West Bank and elsewhere under the occupied territories. And when you combine that intent to control the Palestinians and maintain Jewish domination, coupled with systematic oppression where you have two sets of laws for Jewish settlers and Palestinians, and just numerous inhuman acts committed against Palestinians with the arrestment, the detainment of children, with the confiscation of land, the demolition of houses and schools. When you combine all these three elements together, it meets the international definition of what apartheid is. So this isn't comparing Israel to South Africa. This is just looking at the definition of apartheid and saying that Israel meets those legal requirements. And so this is actually making a statement that we've already, as an organization, CAIR, we've already called what's happening in Israel and the occupied territories, the West Bank. We've already called this apartheid. And so now we're seeing other international organizations make this declaration. When you combine that with the International Criminal Court's investigation into alleged Israeli war crimes against the Palestinians, we're getting a very clear picture that the international conversation about how Israel treats its Arab minority and those in its occupied and controlled territories, it matches the definition of apartheid.
Well, that's very interesting, Robert, because it's not only talking about the treatment of Palestinians who are under military occupation, but also even Palestinians, those living within the recognized Israeli border. So that's a fascinating reported conclusion there. My next question to you is, what can we as Americans do about this, right? I mean, at the end of the day, the Israeli military occupation is funded in large part with our tax dollars. Billions and billions of our dollars as Americans goes to support the Israeli government's occupation of the Palestinian people. So what can we do about this? What are we calling on to happen in response to this report from Human Rights Watch?
Absolutely. CAIR does have an answer. Annually, the U.S. gives $3.8 billion to the state of Israel. A lot of that does get channeled straight to the Israeli military. I would argue, and others do too, that under the Leahy Act, and that's a law already passed by Congress, the U.S. cannot aid any foreign military engaged in human rights violations. So to answer the U.S. government's inaction of enforcing the Leahy Act, Congresswoman Betty McCollum, a member of the Democratic Farm and Labor Party out of Minnesota, she's introduced and reintroduced and keeps on making stronger historic legislation, and it's called the Defending the Human Rights of Palestinian Children and Families Living Under the Israeli Military Occupation Act. In the 117th Congress, that's H.R. 2590. And this act seeks to promote and protect the human rights of Palestinians living under Israeli military occupation and ensure that our U.S. tax dollars do not go to fund the government of Israel in its support of the military detention of Palestinian children, unlawful seizure of land, appropriation or destruction of Palestinian property, which is an ongoing issue, and the forceful transfer of civilians in the West Bank, or the further annexation of Palestinian land. So again, this isn't actually saying defund Israel. It's taking a very smart approach using laws that already exist and holding the state of Israel accountable to those laws, saying that if the Israeli military is engaged in any of these acts of discrimination, detainment of children, confiscation of land, destruction of property, then U.S. tax dollars cannot go to fund that. So in addition to today, CAIR issuing a press statement welcoming the Human Rights Watch report, we issued a secondary press statement encouraging every American to contact their members in the U.S. House of Representatives and say, I need you to co-sponsor this bill. Now, do I believe this bill is going to pass this Congress? I don't, but this is what I can tell you. It's been introduced 3 times in the past 3 Congresses, and it has literally grown from like 6 co-sponsors to 16. And as the state of Israel continues to oppress Palestinians and, conduct military operations that violate their human rights, congressional support for legislation like this is going to grow. But we have to direct our members of Congress to the right solutions. And this is the strongest solution in Congress right now. And so CAIR has an action alert. We'll post the link to that under this video. I'm encouraging everyone to go to it. I would also like to remind viewers that this action alert system, it costs a lot of money, as does the congressional databases we purchase to get access to research these bills and see who might be the next member of Congress that we can get to support. So I really do encourage you this Ramadan to donate to CAIR and help fund our government affairs activities, including these action alerts, which are really critical to empowering Muslims and making sure that their voices are heard in Congress.
Well, thank you, Robert, for that. And indeed, we're going to post that action alert in the comments there. Our producer will do that, so anyone can click on that, fill out the action alert, and then we'll go to your congressional representative, God willing, asking them to co-sign Representative McCollum's bill to try to make sure that our tax dollars are not being used at least as often to engage in human rights violations overseas. Again, is it the end-all be-all solution? Not close, but it's a step in the right direction. That's what it takes. I mean, really, if you recall all the other human rights battles that we fought over the years, it took time from the civil rights movement here in this country to fighting apartheid overseas in South Africa. You start with small bills, you get a few more people on board, until suddenly people see the light and you have a critical mass to bring this nonsense to an end. So let's keep pushing our congressional representatives in the right direction, God willing. And I think this human rights report from HRW will help push people in the right direction, God willing. Robert, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it. Thank you for your work, and we will see you soon, inshallah.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum, everybody.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And now we'd like to shift to another important topic related to the state of Minnesota, actually. So there was a hate crime that recently occurred right during the month of Ramadan, targeting the mosque. And, you know, the state of Minnesota has gone through so much. They just dealt with finishing the trial of Derek Chauvin. There was obviously another police shooting there around the same time. I mean, it's been a very difficult time for that state. And the Muslim community has played a very major role in addressing issues of police brutality and racism. Keith Ellison, as we know, led the prosecution. But the Muslim community still has its own unique issues of dealing with Islamophobia at the very same time. And this attack served as a reminder of that. So let's bring on Muhammad Ibrahim, the Deputy Director of the Minnesota chapter of the Council on American Islamic Relations. And I'll ask our producer to also maybe get us a link and a photo ready to show the damage that was caused to the mosque that we're going to discuss. Maybe we can put that on screen in a few minutes. Assalamu alaikum, Brother Muhammad. I'm good, alhamdulillah. Now, I can read your lips because I've been doing this for so long, but you've still got to unmute yourself so I can understand the rest of the conversation. I can only read lips for so long. Alhamdulillah.
Yes. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I hope you're doing well, Brother Edward.
Now, maybe it's just me, but you're still muted. Are you unmuted?
I'm unmuted. Can you hear me now?
No, I can't hear you yet. We'll have our producers work on that. So hang tight, Muhammad. We're going to try to fix that issue, inshallah. While we're doing that, I'll bring our viewers up to speed on what the issue is that we're dealing with in Minnesota. So there's a prominent house of worship there that was vandalized just a few days ago. Horrific graffiti spilled over it, property broken. To my understanding, the suspect in that attack has not yet been identified or arrested. So there is some risk that this person could still be out there and posing a threat to other communities. And sadly, things like this have happened before. Several years ago, there was a bombing attack at a mosque in Minnesota. Someone literally threw a pipe bomb into a mosque in Minnesota while people were getting ready for prayer. Alhamdulillah, no one was injured, but that mosque did suffer serious damage. So, you know, this issue is happening far too often. One time is too many times. And so we want to talk and hear what CAIR Minnesota can do about this, inshallah. Brother Muhammad, let's try again. Can we hear you?
Yes. Can you hear me now?
Still muted. Still muted.
Still
okay.
Muted? Okay.
All right. What we're going to do, inshallah, our producers are going to try to solve that issue, inshallah. All right. Zai, you can hear him. Okay. I can't hear him. All right. Technical difficulties. Everyone just stand by for a moment. We're going to try to sort this out and be right back with you. Okay. I'm going to ask our producer, Ayana Jean, to come on to the program if she can. I believe the audio for her may work, and then she'll be able to work with us and make sure that we can continue the program. She might have to keep her camera off. She's not camera ready, but that might be the only way we can solve this. So let's bring on Ayana, let's bring Muhammad back and see if we can carry on the program, inshallah.
Assalamu alaikum. How are you, Muhammad?
I'm doing well. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Good.
So I think Edward covered a little bit, but can you tell us a little what happened in this incident in Minnesota?
Yes. So as you know, a couple of nights ago, so there was a masjid, a Minnesota masjid that was vandalized with racist Islamophobic graffiti. And the imam at the Moorhead Fargo Islamic Community Center discovered this hate speech when he arrived for the morning prayers on April 25th, which is 2 days ago. And it was really horrific, hate messages that was really intended to intimidate the Muslim community. And it was, horrific, language, saying terrible things about Islam. And as you see, is the Nazi symbol there as well. And it was, really, all over the building there, in around the Islamic Center. So through the front, through the back, and there was some cryptic language in there as well. So it was kind of, startling to kind of go up to or see, a messaging of this type or of this nature, so it's been really tough for the community to witness that.
Well, Muhammad,
and kind of scary as well.
Yeah, that was my next question, actually. What was the community's response? Like, how did people react when they saw this? The people that attend that Islamic center and just, the civil rights communities in the area, what was the response like?
So I think the first thing inside the building, right? Because it's kind of safe to kind of walk into, but also you alert authorities and you make sure that professionals come and make sure that they do a security sweep and make sure that there isn't anything left kind of like on the premises to make sure everything's secure. And right away, the masjid, they filed an incident report to us, and that when we were alerted there as well. And typically when it comes to these nature, you alert the FBI, and the FBI is currently investigating into the matter. And there was a suspect, and his image was floating out there as well. An individual that did this terrible act as well. But after that, I think there was an outpouring support from the community, from the locals and folks from outside the community. So there was at least 200 folks that came to help clean up the masjid, which was beautiful to see, alhamdulillah. And really to kind of show that that hate will not be welcomed in the city of Moorhead, in the Fargo area as well. And it was a really good, heartwarming response to see the community kind of band together. And you saw communities of multiple communities of color, multiple communities of faith, and otherwise as well. And everybody was there, showing solidarity to the community, standing up with the masjid, and basically saying that hate will definitely not be welcomed in the town.
No, that's beautiful that everyone got together to show that that's something that's not accepted in the community. My last question for you is, what do you think are systemic policies that need to be changed to prevent something like this from happening in the future?
I think we have to do more than showing up to say things are not enough, and they're not going to, and hate is not going to be welcomed in our communities. But we actually need policies that reinforce that makes things like this, in terms of graffiti or hateful messages being written, that has the intention to intimidate community, to be labeled as a hate crime. And also that we know that hate crimes are extremely underreported. We know that 2/3 of hate crimes are not reported in the state of Minnesota and otherwise. But we need to do a better job of making sure that we expand to how hate crimes can be reported, and to make sure that to include organizations as well, because folks might not want to go to the police departments because of the reservations towards police departments to go out and report hate crimes, right? So I think we need to expand it to trusted organizations, trusted community resources that the communities feel comfortable approaching and saying, hey, listen, I had my business vandalized, or I experienced some type of hate crime. So there's currently legislation that exists in the state of Minnesota right now, and we're really pushing to expand the definition of hate crimes, and also increase increase the ability to report, and also to figure out how to combat reporting lies as well.
Yeah, and I'm really happy that you actually brought that up, the topic of labeling it as a hate crime, because that's something that we see a lot in incidents across the country. And one of the main things that we talk about is for justice to truly be served, we need to call the incident what it is, right? So I really appreciate you bringing that up. And I want to thank you for coming on today to talk to us about the incident. So thank you for that, Muhammad. And it's really nice to see how the community responded and that you guys were a part of that. So thank you and CAIR Minnesota for the great work that you're doing.
No, Jazakumullah khair for having us, and amazing job for all the work that you all are doing. Jazakumullah khair, and Allah Kareem.
Yes, let me echo that. Thank you, Muhammad, for joining. Thank you, Ayan, for stepping in and helping us resolve our technical difficulties. And the one thing I want to emphasize to all of our communities, especially in Ramadan, is that we've got to take that preventive action to make sure that we're keeping our houses of worship as safe as possible. We know about the danger of extremism in this country. We know about the danger of anti-Muslim hate crimes, of mass shootings. So those of us who are in leadership of masajid, we got to make sure we're taking those security precautions and reviewing our security procedures, especially in Ramadan when you've got many people at the mosque. So have an emergency evacuation plan, clearly marked exits. Practice your plan with the community. If you're able to keep your doors of your masjid locked, especially at night when no one's there, and also even during the prayer, so that no one can open the door and walk in behind you while everyone's praying, looking in the wrong direction. Those are really good security measures. Obviously, if you can hire armed guards during times when you've got a lot of people there, that could be a game changer. Or if you've got trained, qualified, trustworthy community members who are licensed to act as guards or licensed to carry, you could also consider that route. Security cameras are critical, not only inside the building, but outside the building and visible to act as a deterrent. And not only near where the building is, but you want to have them on the pathway leading to the mosque, so that if there's a car that pulls up, you're easily catching that license plate number and everything you can about the direction the person came from. And of course, make sure that you've got kids at the mosque wandering in and out, that someone's keeping track of them. We know about the tragedy that happened in Virginia several years ago when young people were outside the mosque late at night. So we just got to make sure that we are taking preventive measures, not just addressing this on the back end after something happens. And of course, CAIR is here to help with that, inshallah, but we want to make sure this doesn't happen in the first place. So we encourage all masajid in these final weeks of Ramadan, review your security procedures, make sure you're being as safe as possible. Trust in Allah, and as the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, tie your camel. So that I want to thank you all for joining us today. Thank you for joining the program. We look forward to seeing you next Tuesday, inshallah, for our next episode. Of course, we encourage you again, please support CAIR during these important weeks of Ramadan. This is a critical fundraising season for us. We rely so much on the month of Ramadan and your support in this month to be able to advance our work, to defend the community. And so please do help us hit our goal. We had our 10-day goal, 20-day goal, 30-day goal. Right now, we are behind on our next goal, but inshallah, we can get there with your support. So please go to cair.com/donate and support us if you can, and encourage your family and friends to do so as well. Jazakallahu khairan. Assalamu alaikum. Ramadan Mubarak.